Evangelion Part 3 Story of the End. Let's go! In the last few episodes, the plot develops at breakneck speed. Since Shinji is reborn again, Misato can go and sleep with Kaji with a clear conscience. Kaji gives Misato a microchip filled with information about Seal and Nerve, implying that he gives her this microchip as a parting present, which is appropriate since he gets killed in the next episode. As a character, Kaji served well to develop Misato, Shinji, and Ikari Gendo, which is more than you should expect from a fuckboy. Professor Fuyutsuki, who is Gendo's second in command, gets kidnapped and interrogated. Fuyutsuki gets rescued by Kaji, which was the ultimate reason why they sent assassins after Kaji. Also worth noting are truly heartbreaking scenes, where Misato keeps rewinding Kaji's last voicemail. Next, we witness the fall of Asuka. Once a proud and competent pilot, she loses her confidence and her ability to sync with an Evangelion after several major failures on the battlefield. We learn more about Asuka's background. Her mother, after losing a part of her soul in Evangelion 02, basically transferred all of her feelings she felt for Asuka onto a doll, and started ignoring Asuka from that point on, which was probably for the best. That is the reason why Asuka has such a passionate hatred towards dolls, and also why she feels the need to prove herself all the time and to have perfect self-control. Knowing this, now it's perfectly clear why Asuka hates Rei so much. Because Rei is almost literally a doll, one of the many clones of Yui. Absolutely worth mentioning is the scene from the elevator with Asuka and Rei. There's so much tension in the air, you can cut it with a knife. I honestly think this is one of the most Kino scenes in all of Evangelion. In the next fight against the Angel, Asuka squares off against Arael, the 15th Angel. Arael attacks her with a psychological attack, which forces the victim to remember and constantly relive the worst and most painful memories of their lives. This attack truly devastates Asuka, and she completely loses her ability to synchronize with an Evangelion. In order to defeat the Angel, Gendo orders Rei to take the Spear of Longinus and to throw it at the Angel. And she does, successfully. The spear destroys the Angel and ends up in the orbit around the moon, well out of reach of anyone on Earth, which was exactly what Gendo wanted. Also, the fact that Asuka got saved by a doll, by Rei, only adds insult to injury as far as Asuka is concerned. After this, Asuka falls victim to a deep and serious depression, and won't be doing anything notable until the movie. After that, Rei and her Evangelion get attacked by Armisael, the 16th Angel. And in order to defeat this angel, both Rei and Evangelion have to self-destruct. After that, Rei suddenly reappears among the pilots. But this is just one of Yui's clones. Next, Ikari Gendo betrays Ritsuko Akagi, and he gives her to Seely, where they interrogate her in a humiliating way. In a flashback, we see that Gendo was also romantically involved with Ritsuko's mother, and that the reason for her death was Rei, the first clone of Yui, in a bizarre murder-suicide incident. After being interrogated, Ritsuko decides that she wants to have her revenge on Gendo. Ritsuko shares all her top-secret knowledge with Misato and the pilots, and shows them the clone room, filled with Rei's clones, and Ritsuko, in her last act of revenge, destroys them. Since Asuka is no longer fit to pilot an Evangelion, Nerve gets sent a new pilot, Kaworu Nagisa. This character is insanely popular, even though he only appeared in one episode. So popular that his role in the Rebuild movies gets expanded upon a lot. However, in the anime itself, he suddenly appears as a pilot who can synchronize with an EVA perfectly. He also gets pretty intimate with Shinji. Kaworu and Shinji definitely developed some sort of a very close bond. Dare I say romantic? and this only makes things extremely complicated once it is discovered that Kaworu Nagisa is the 17th angel, Tabris. During some of the best action scenes in Evangelion, while Tabris is controlling an Eva, Shinji and Kaworu, while fighting, get down to Lilith. Here, Tabris sees the crucified angel for the first time, and he was honestly expecting to find Adam here, not Lilith. Tabris realizes what will happen if he comes into contact with Lilith, and not wanting to get rid of all humanity, and he got really fond of humanity, he allows himself to get killed by Shinji in what is a very emotionally complicated scene. It is amazing what a competent director can accomplish even with a strict budget. A scene also worth noting is, at the end of the day after the fight, Shinji goes to Misato, wanting to confide and share his grievances with someone, but she is also devastated by the death of Kaji, and she can't really be of any help. This is basically where the anime ends, because the next two episodes are literally haphazardly put together, obviously done on a shoestring budget. These two episodes showcase the project of human instrumentality in a very abstract and philosophical way. After which we get the Omedeto scene where everybody congratulates Shinji for choosing the right path for humanity. At the very end, we also get a Evangelion slice of life comedy for some reason. Naturally, this kind of ending didn't satisfy anyone, so it was soon followed by what is now canonically the end of the story, the movie, The End of Evangelion. So let's take a closer look at the movie to see how this story actually ends. The movie starts with Shinji, who is still distraught by what happened with Tabris. Shinji contemplates suicide. Since he didn't get much support from Misato, he goes to Asuka. Unfortunately, she is also unable to give any comfort to Shinji since she is in a coma. This gives Shinji an opportunity to do some improper teenagery stuff while Asuka is in a coma. And the plot just goes on. Seal has finally had enough of Ikari Gendo, and they organize a big military attack on the nerve facilities. Misato puts comatose Asuka into the Evangelion and places them on the bottom of the lake, where they'll be safe. After that, she rescues Shinji and drags him to his Evangelion, during which she gets mortally wounded. She kisses traumatized Shinji, promises improper pleasures to him if he returns from this mission successfully, after which she promptly pushes him into the elevator and dies. While this happens, Gendo realizes that the end is near, and he wants to start the Terdo Impacto. He and Rei go to the room where Lilith is crucified, but Ritsuko confronts them. Still thirsty for revenge, she tries to self-destruct the whole nerve complex. But in an ironic twist, computer her mother made, the Magi system, which is made of three aspects of her personality, refuses to self-destruct the nerve complex. The aspect of Ritsuko's mother, the aspect of her as a woman, simply could not agree with destroying the complex and killing Gendo, thus betraying Ritsuko. In what is truly one-of-a-kind Kino scene, Gendo tells something to Ritsuko, but we cannot actually hear it, just before he shoots her. According to Ano, those unheard words were, "I needed you." Turns out that Gendo was the fuckboy all along, not Kaji. Asuka somehow recovers, and she realizes that the part of the soul of her mother that entered the Evangelion was the part that truly loved Asuka. Feeling encouraged by this, Asuka literally jumps out of the lake and gets into a big fight with mass-produced Evas. Those mass-produced EVAs are very similar to Evangelions, but they have no pilot. In what is an awesome action sequence, Asuka at first completely dominates her enemies. But since the mass-produced EVAs can regenerate really quickly, Asuka was just not able to defeat them. In what is now an iconic scene, she gets stabbed by many spears, and while dying, she reaches with her hand towards the sun. Meanwhile, Shinji activates the Evangelion, breaks through the backlit, and arrives to the battlefield, just in time to see the defeat of Asuka. Now, Gendo is fused with Adam, and he wants to also fuse with Rei, since she has Lilith's DNA inside her. By doing this, he would actually start the third impact, by connecting the Fruit of Knowledge and Fruit of Life. The third impact would send all across the world an anti-AT field wave. This would make the AT fields of all living creatures fall, including humans, of course. Gendo does all this in order to be alongside Yui again in this so-called instrumentality. Unfortunately for Gendo, Rei rejects him. She takes the fused atom from him, and there Rei starts the third impact all by herself. Why did Rei reject Gendo? Well, it is implied that through Rei spoke Yui, and that Yui was very dissatisfied with the way Gendo was treating Shinji. And I think it's safe to assume that she was not happy with Gendo's romantic endeavors. By Rei rejecting him and betraying him, Gendo in the end gets what he deserves. But we'll get on that shortly. Rei absorbs Adam, she merges with Lilith, and she transforms into a gigantic version of herself. Sensing that this is happening, the mass-produced EVAs crucify Shinji and his Evangelion on a cross made out of their versions of the Spears of Longinus. By doing this, they create a Tree of Life. What follows are one of the most weird and bizarre scenes in all of anime. Extremely confusing, very abstract, and imaginative. What we're basically witnessing is the instrumentality, the fall of AT barriers, and the third impact. It is very beautiful, but also very creepy. What is actually going on? Well, we're following this from Shinji's perspective, the way Shinji is experiencing instrumentality. Now, when all souls are one, where all thoughts are shared, and all emotions are also shared, Shinji is finally able to look at and understand all of his relationships. He lives through memories of other people. Asuka, Rei, Misato. He also gets into a big confrontation with Asuka. Asuka accuses Shinji of actually using all of them for comfort or whatever, all the while dishonestly claiming that he was pathetic. Shinji doesn't really handle all this well, and he tries to strangle Asuka. So Lilith basically devolves all of humanity into the sea of LCL. LCL is what remains when your AT field drops. It is worth noting that all the people who are about to be turned into LCL get a vision of Rei. The theory states that the person you liked or loved the most will appear in front of you moments before your AT field drops and you become LCL. And this is especially interesting in Gendo's case. In his vision of instrumentality, he once again gets rejected. His soul is not allowed to merge into the sea of LCL, and Gendo gets brutally murdered by Evangelion 01. Had he been a better father and a better husband, maybe he wouldn't have deserved such a miserable end. In the meantime, Shinji is experiencing instrumentality and the merging of all souls that ever existed. Here we can see Asuka daring Shinji to repeat what he did in the hospital while she was in a coma, and many other weird conversations and visuals. Shinji gets to see what the world would look like if Shinji never existed. He is truly trying to realize and understand the value of his own existence in this world. In the end, he concludes that life is only worth living if you experience both the good and the bad, and that you really have nothing to gain by escaping and running away from the bad. A Japanese person had to encounter instrumentality in order to understand a concept that was understood by a wise man from the Balkans hundreds of years ago. Shinji is in a position to decide for the whole of humanity. He gets to decide whether everyone will remain merged into the Sea of LCL or whether they will be able to regain their AT fields and become individuals again. With his newfound joie de vivre and now willing to face both the good and the bad in life, Shinji rejects instrumentality and asks Rei to allow people to have their AT fields again. After that, Shinji's Evangelion splits from the Tree of Life and kills off the mass-produced EVAs. By doing this, he stops the third impact from completing. In epic scenes, body of gigantic Rei dissolves and falls all over the earth. This animation is really striking, and it is really not something that you can easily forget. Next, we see Shinji and Asuka on the shoreline, surrounded by the Sea of LCL. I think these visuals are one of the most recognizable from all of Evangelion. In a brief flash, Rei appears to Shinji, but she disappears again. Here it is shown to us that Shinji and later Asuka were the only people with AT fields strong enough to withstand the partial third impact. Or maybe it was the fact that they were inside the Evangelions while the impact occurred. Who knows at this point. Anyhow, the rest of humanity is merged into the Sea of LCL. Here it is implied that other souls will also have the opportunity to regain their AT fields and their individuality once they are ready for it. And that would confirm that the third impact never completed, that it was stopped. It is unclear how much time Shinji spent in the instrumentality, but what is clear is that outside of instrumentality, on that shoreline, Shinji lived for at least some period of time, literally completely alone in the whole world. This is kind of confirmed since Shinji made graves for people he cared about. Shinji promptly starts to strangle Asuka, and she doesn't really fight it all that much. Instead of fighting, she gently caresses his cheek, after which Shinji stops strangling her and breaks out into tears. The movie ends with Asuka saying "Kimochi warui," which means that was disgusting. And this is understandable, especially coming from someone who was just merged into the Sea of LCL. People theorize that Shinji attacked Asuka because he wished to confirm to himself that he was outside of instrumentality, that he was actually in the real world. And the moment Asuka starts to fight back, he could be certain that he was in the real world, since Asuka's form in the instrumentality would not really fight back. That form wouldn't even react to Shinji. Asuka's choice to caress his cheek instead of fighting him and confirming that they are in the real world is honestly brilliant. No wonder Shinji broke into tears. The Omedeto scene where everybody is congratulating Shinji, they are actually congratulating his decision for him and the rest of humanity to remain as individuals. And here is where this epic of an anime ends. Not a lot of people are prepared to experience what Evangelion has to offer. It's filled with complex imagery, action, romance, growing up, philosophy, trauma, tragic romances. It almost has it all, even though most fans will watch the anime without understanding the underlying plot. And the depth of the themes and motives showcased in this story, few of us who actually devote time and effort to truly understand what this story is about and what it can tell us, Us few will be rewarded with one of the greatest stories ever told and one of the best masterpieces of art in any form of media, not just anime. It is most certainly much more deep and involved than most required reading you will get at schools. If you really want to understand this masterpiece and an epic, I would suggest that you watch part 1 and part 2 of our video series where we explain Evangelion. Devote some time and effort to truly understand this anime, and I can assure you that you will not be disappointed. It is honestly worth every minute. That would be it about Evangelion and the end of this series. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Do follow us on social networks and check out other videos on our channel. We do a lot of anime content. That's it. See you next time. Bye bye.